Hey everyone, welcome to the 76 Research Program. I'm Trish Regan. I'm joined by Rob Hordon, my colleague, esteemed colleague, and co-founder at 76. Rob, big weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be back with you, Trish.
Wow, I'm like, it feels like a long time coming, right? Let's face it. I mean, this is historic. It's a huge deal. 45 and 47. He's coming back. And in some ways, Rob, as you know, we go into the next few days here, I think a lot's going to happen. He's coming back, I think, with more power than he's ever had before. What is your sense of where Donald Trump is in the world right now?
Yep, all eyes on him. I mean, it's. I think you're right in the sense that after all he's been through and all of the accusations and the lawfare, to prevail, to rise above that, to win the election, to win the popular. It was really a recognition. This is what people want, and it's sort of a special kind of mandate in that sense, right? Because of the whole backstory.
Yeah. Yeah. Big backstory. I was just playing some of it on the Trish Regan channel and the Trish Regan show, just watching that media call him everything and some pretty hateful stuff, right? Really hateful stuff. And we don't have to get into it, but yeah, there's been a heck of a backstory. But, as an investor, we're all about moving forward. And I think about where the markets have been going and
Yep.
this just tremendous momentum that we saw as it became more and more clear, Rob, that Donald Trump was going to win the election. You could see it, you could almost feel it, you could taste it within the internals of the market when you looked at Bitcoin, for example, and the rally that we saw,
Yep.
not just Bitcoin, other cryptos as well. And this momentum is continuing. What is it that Wall Street loves most about Donald Trump?
It's true. I mean, we saw that, particularly in November and sort of heading towards December, there was a lot of enthusiasm and money coming into the market. People are excited about the tax cuts, the deregulatory agenda, just sort of pro-business policies, right? Looking, at all things and trying to make the best decisions to grow the economy while containing inflation. So I think, there really was a lot of enthusiasm in the aftermath of the election, and it was warranted. But then actually, in mid-December with the Fed, we had that reversal in markets, and it actually was a little bit more turbulent than like kind of the broader index, S&P 500 index would kind of show.
Well, I mean, let's face it, right? We're up there. Like these are kind of lofty valuations. And this momentum had been going. And so at some point, I guess people are going to take a break. I mean, look, for me, I'm a long-term investor. For you, you're a long-term investor. Yeah. I use those as opportunities. We saw Bitcoin actually start to kind of cater a little bit. And what did I do? I went in and bought some more. So, I try to, but again, like my time horizon isn't next week, right? I'm looking out for a very long period of time. And at 76 Research, we actually have different portfolios that are designed to help people that, for example, might be interested in growth and have a longer time horizon versus, say, the income builder portfolio where you really want to be on a more sort of narrow path, and then inflation protection as well. But I guess my sentiment sort of overall is that there's a few things happening. And that's that you've got Donald Trump in there who gets business, who more than anything wants to be able to point to the GDP print and say, see? I told you so, right? Who wants to see lower inflation in a booming, growing economy, who wants the U.S. to dominate every industry, including, by the way, the changes that are coming within the financial industry and the crypto space, and we can get to that. And so he's game on. He's risk on. He's all about growing America and making us great, really. That's the tagline, right? Make America great again. He wants us to dominate, economically dominate the rest of the world and see that, successful dollar, king dollar, while simultaneously having, he wants it all, right? Like totally wants it all. Yep. And I guess when I think about one, he's there in office, and two, you have some fundamental changes going on vis-a-vis AI and a tech boom unlike any other, that gets me pretty excited about long-term growth opportunities. I'm excited because I see this shift, this change in terms of deregulation that's going to be healthy for industries, while simultaneously somebody there who actually wants to protect America and American workers. And I think that bodes well for our middle class, which is a key pillar, right, of a strong economy. So you add it all up, and it's hard for me anyway not to feel bullish.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I kind of bring up the Fed-related turbulence in the sense that, it's like stock prices haven't, they've reversed a bit from that initial burst because the market narrative kind of shifted to this focus on interest rates, and maybe the Fed's not going to be as, it's not going to have as easy a monetary policy. So the market kind of freaked out for a few weeks, but that just means valuations have kind of reset. And from the standpoint of investors now, you haven't missed the boat, right? We're back to President Trump starts tomorrow, and I think the market narrative is going to shift back to all the interesting things that can happen on the policy front and less around the interest rate situation.
I lost you for just a second, but I think we got what you were saying. Incidentally, I just want to point out for people, if you're watching us, go over to investinmaga.com, Invest in MAGA, totally free. Rob and I put this guide together to kind of help you think through the opportunities that are there right now and that will continue to come your way. So investinmaga.com, or go to 76research.com if you're interested in some of the portfolios. One of the things I wanted to get to is some of the sound that came out of our friend Scott Bessent there at who's going into Treasury. And gosh, I mean, he's brilliant. I can't say enough about how smart he is and how you need that kind of sophistication, if you would. Here he is talking about China, and he's talking to Senator Wyden, and Wyden is like, oh my gosh, we're going to be so, excuse my French, screwed because China's all about clean energy. And it's like, what are you drinking, buddy? China? Clean energy? I mean, I don't think I'd use those in the same sentence. Anyway, Scott Bessent totally put him in his place. It was terrific. Let's watch.
The more you reduce carbon, the bigger your tax savings. Now there is a big effort in the Trump administration to reverse it. I think that's going to be bad for the economy, but it is going to be damn good for China because we are in an arms race on clean energy with them. Are you going to be on the side of people who want to unravel this?
Senator Wyden, just so we can frame this for everyone in the room, China will build 100 new coal plants this year. There is not a clean energy race. There is an energy race. China will build 10 nuclear plants this year. That is not solar. I am in favor of more nuclear plants. And I would note that the IRA, as scored by the CBO, is wildly out of control in terms of spending on the upside.
Well,
I'm going to bring my friend Rob back in here. Rob, let me see if I can bring you in and get us both on camera for a second, because I just want to get your reaction to this. I mean, again, finally getting a realist in the room kind of seems like long overdue. I've been ever so slightly frustrated with these libs who just kind of seem quite clueless. I mean, Jennifer Granholm, in charge of the energy policy in this country, was just sort of a travesty, combined with Blinken, who's never gotten anything right at state. And no, we weren't doing the best job vis-a-vis China, but it wasn't because China had clean energy, for goodness sakes. Come on.
Yeah, that hearing was fantastic, and we did a nice kind of lengthy write up on sort of the key takeaways in the 76 report. So if people sign up for that, they can check it out. But one of the things that I was struck by in terms of Scott Bessent is like the reaction that I've seen kind of across social media by the investment community, because I just think everyone was just so thoroughly impressed with his delivery, what he knows, the depth of his knowledge, the level of his sophistication. And it's like not something we've really seen in other candidates kind of across all these different positions. So this is someone who knows what he's talking about. And I think even Democrats were kind of secretly relieved that Trump made pick for Treasury because everyone in that room understood real who.
Yeah, look, I mean, these politicians, unfortunately, aren't necessarily their chops as far as understanding economic stuff is not necessarily what one would like to see. And by the way, I fault both sides for that. They've all got law degrees, right? But nobody actually has run a business. Nobody has really had to manage a budget. I mean, if you call what they do managing the budget, they just spend money we don't have. So I was impressed. I think all of Wall Street was impressed. There's really nothing to pick apart on Scott Bessent, and he just really had some very, very poignant comments. I want to include one more here for people, Rob, because he made a statement about what it is that got him into this to begin with, and I found that really quite compelling. Too often, sadly, I think that we have politicians that get into this for the wrong reasons. But he said, listen, I realized I needed to do something. I had to do something because our future as a nation was at stake. Let's listen to him on crazy spending.
We do not have a revenue problem in the United States of America. We have a spending problem. That historically, for the past 40 or 50 years, revenues, federal government revenues, have averaged about 17 to 17.5% of GDP. Yeah. And spending has been slightly over that, leading us to a 3.5% budget deficit, which is manageable because we have roughly 3.8% nominal growth, 1.8% real growth, 2% inflation. Today, as you stated, and to be clear, this is one of the things that got me out from behind my desk and my quiet life in this campaign was the thought that this spending is out of control. We are spending about 24, 25% of GDP. So as you said, 6.8 to 7% deficit. We have never seen this before when it is not a recession or not a war. And I am concerned because several times the Treasury of the United States has been called upon to save the nation, whether it was the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II, or the recent COVID epidemic. Treasury, along with full government and Congress, has used its borrowing capacity to save the Union, to save the world, and to save the American people. And what we currently have now, we would be hard-pressed to do same.
Wow, right? I mean, I love the historical references there, and I think our viewers would agree. You cannot spend more than you make, and we've been doing it for way too long, and we got to actually get this under control. DOGE will have a hand in that, but, it's going to be tough. They don't want to touch entitlements, and let's face it, if you don't touch entitlements, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to, I don't know, can you grow your way out? Donald Trump says tariffs. Tariffs are going to be a big part of what he wants to do. I love this. Rob, he's talking about something called the EXS instead of the IRS. We could have an external revenue service. Imagine that. I mean, what's your take on that? Tell me what you think in terms of how tariffs are going to affect the overall economy, affect inflation, and whether something like an EXS works.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just also want to just kind of mention in terms of his comments, what I thought was really striking about his whole testimony was the way he was always like weaving in kind of national security issues and sort of the broader, bigger picture in kind of making that point that we're kind of maxed out on our credit cards right now, but things are kind of stable. What happens in a crisis, right? So there's a national security dimension to having your fiscal house in order because there are times when war or a recession. So that just pervaded all of his comments, and it was related to tariffs. He connects tariffs to our relationship with other countries. For example, one of the things he brought about, he mentioned was how he and Trump prefer tariffs to financial sanctions, that they were cognizant of the effect that the financial sanctions were having on keeping the dollar as the reserve currency, which is their priority, because
Okay,
it was
back up for a second because I think that's actually a really important point. And just to explain it to people, when you sanction a country, you're cutting them off from those dollars effectively. So, if you're a country like Russia, I mean, we can use Russia as an example because they were sanctioned, and you've been building up a reserve in U.S. treasuries because U.S. treasury bonds are seen as the safest instrument in the world. Well, what happens when the U.S. is like, I don't like the way you looked at me today, and all of a sudden you can't access those U.S. treasury bonds. You can't, at that point, you have the riskiest instrument in the world, right? You went from the safest to the riskiest. And so if there's a way to kind of take the political component out of that and still punish your enemies, use those financial tools without actually kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face, which is what you're sort of doing with sanctions, then by all means, go for it.
Yeah, what Biden basically did was, you freeze all these Russian assets, whether it's U.S. government bonds that they own or other, just whatever financial assets they have in Western financial institutions. Mm-hmm. And okay, you could argue maybe Russia deserved it, but there's a lot of countries in the world that have their money in Western financial institutions. And as you said, if they don't know when their policies or their decisions are going to run afoul of some president of the United States. So now,
do you think I'm buying yuan? Do you think I'm investing in the Chinese sovereign equivalents? No, right? Because I'm if China doesn't like me very much tomorrow, so you got to put yourself as a nation, I think, financially speaking, right, in a position where you're sort of Switzerland, except you're not, right? Go ahead.
If you want to be you want to be the reserve currency, you want to be the guy running the global financial system. Mm-hmm. You can't just take people's chips off out of their pockets whenever you feel like it, right?
Right.
And so that's part of the reason why gold has been so strong over the past couple of years, because
I lost you for a second there. You were just saying one of the reasons gold has been so strong over the last couple of years is because a lot of emerging markets are saying, "Ooh, we don't know, if we can count on our U.S. dollar assets because the U.S. could intervene in a way that would be really doomsday for us." So Trump is saying, okay, well, maybe we don't do that, but there's other things we can do.
Right.
And that's where he looks at tariffs.
Exactly. You can still use economic that not in a way that threatens the, that motivates people to pull out of the U.S. kind of backed financial system. So tariffs are just a more, equally could put the same kind of amount of pressure on another country without, blowing up the whole system and their participation in the U.S.
Okay, so we like tariffs. I mean, I love that Donald Trump, it was something I've always appreciated about him, is willing to say, okay, we'll tariff you, as opposed to we're going to send troops, right? Because I don't like the idea of immediately escalating things to that kind of level where, let's be perfectly frank, lives are lost, right? So you hopefully are not getting yourself in that situation. Some would say, tariffs lead to that. And, they think about Smoot-Hawley and World War II, et cetera. But again, I would just say in the scheme of things, for whatever reason, Democrats, which is interesting, it's Democrats, have been a little too keen on always sending the troops. Whereas I would say, let's try and use a little more diplomacy and let's use the financial tools, our arsenal that we have at our disposal, including tariffs, before we get that extreme. But what do tariffs mean for U.S. markets? I mean, I think this is kind of the unknown, right? If you slap a 25% tariff on everything coming in from China, it may mean that Walmart's not going to sell as many goods from China. It may mean more inflation. There's a temporary, fortunately, hopefully a temporary effect to all this, but it's coming at a tough time.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of focus on it, and maybe a lot of exaggeration in terms of how inflationary it can be. But even mainstream, institutions have, Goldman indicated their estimates were pretty mild in terms of the inflationary impact, pretty negligible.
Good.
It depends how they're implemented. They're kind of one time in nature. I think, when you think about tariffs, I mean, you don't want to over exaggerate how much of the economy is based on foreign trade as opposed to domestic activity and services. And you also don't want to overestimate, like, when you buy a product from China, yeah, there's sort of like the cost of the merchandise, but then a lot of the cost that you pay in the retail sense is like the cost of distribution and delivery. So it's not as if prices go 25% up. That's just on the kind of the wholesale cost.
No, that's a really fair point. And I think also it may encourage, I used the Mexico example the other day. I think I was talking to the kids and I was like, okay, that avocado toast you like, guess what? We may have to pay more for those avocados. But on the flip side, like, think about it. Maybe the avocados are grown more in California as a result of this. Maybe you import less from Mexico. Maybe you start growing more and you use some of the technological advantages because, I get it with workers, et cetera. It's hard. You may not have the labor supply, but maybe, again, as we look at this tech boom that's happening simultaneously alongside us, there are ways for you to kind of get some of these basic things, whether it's agricultural or, by the way, not so basic, semiconductors. My other big concern is, for goodness sakes, I want to get all those semiconductors onshore like yesterday, okay? Because if something happens vis-a-vis Taiwan, that's not good for us. It's not good for the markets. And I think that's just, another reality that we have to think about. So the more you can onshore production of key industries and even not so key industries, the better off I would think the United States of America would be. And by the way, this is turning everything on its head. Like everything you learned as an economics major at Princeton, everything I was learning at Columbia, right? Where it's like, okay, we've got these economies of scale and comparative advantages and let's grow. That's all fine until, somebody wants to be the top dog, maybe China, and, the growth becomes, not as attainable if you can't actually service your own economy and your own people yourself. And we got a taste of this, if you would, Rob, right? In 2020, you just couldn't buy things because the factories were still shut down in China.
Yep. And that goes back to that sort of interplay between economic policy and national security. And look, to the extent tariffs could be impactful to inflation or the economy, they're going to be mindful of it, right? Because you have Scott Bessent and the whole team there very carefully thinking about these tariffs, right? They're not going to be indiscriminate. They're going to understand the economic impact. They're going to make the trade-offs. And look, if improving our long-term national security position means we have to pay higher prices for certain foreign goods, it might be worth it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think and on the tariff side, what's lost is, sure, all forms of taxation can be inflationary, but corporate income taxes are actually inflationary because the companies pass through the reduction in their
yeah. Biden doesn't understand that.
So no one talks about that.
Elizabeth Warren doesn't understand that either.
There've been very real academic studies that say 50% of corporate income taxes get passed through to the consumer, and so we're just kind of redirecting how we tax in different directions that better serve our economic objectives or better serve our overall national objectives.
Sure.
And we're going to do it. We're going to do it carefully with smart people involved.
I like it. Yeah. Finally, some smart people. We need smart people. So, Yellen, come on. She turned into such a political hack. I'm sure she's a smart lady. She's got a zillion degrees. She's worked at the Fed. She's been chairman of the Fed. But wow, for her to sit there with a straight face and say that inflation was transitory. I thought I was going to scream. When Larry Summers is finally the voice of reason, Larry, I could say make him head of the Treasury Department under Biden. Biden would have had a much more successful time if they had had somebody with a couple brain cells. I'm not sure what happened to Yellen, but look, it's all water under the bridge. We're moving forward. We're excited about it. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And not just within sort of, I like industrials right now. You and I have written about this. I encourage people, go to 76research.com, get the 76 report. You can get it with code word dollar, DOLLAR, sign up. It's $1 a month first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. You can cancel anytime, so don't worry about it. No harm, no foul. But we have picks there as well for companies that we like, and when we have a sort of broad sense of the sectors as well that we like. The specific portfolios you can get at 76 Research as well, because we have an inflation protection portfolio, we have a American Resilience Growth portfolio, we have as well a income builder portfolio. So sort of the best, if you would, we're cherry picking the companies that we feel are best positioned for the future, given whatever needs you may have, whether it be a growth sort of focus on what you want to do or an income focus on what you want to do. You can get them all, by the way, if you just sign up for the Founders Club, which is the best deal. But I digress. What I wanted to get to a little bit was also what's going on in the crypto space, because I'm fascinated by it. I always have been. I should have bought Bitcoin when it was $10. I was reporting on it enough. And look, I mean, there's so much happening, again, from an AI perspective, from this digital financial perspective, that is massive, and the train has left the station. And what I love is Donald Trump is on board with this. So this means more great stuff to come. And I think it's critical for the U.S. to kind of lead the way here. We have the success of our financial markets to thank for being, I think, this sort of hegemonic power, or the world's reserve currency. And in order to continue that and preserve that, we've got to move forward into the future. And that means, you know what, having access to capital 24/7, not just between 9:30 and 4, bankers' hours, closed on holidays. The world is shifting and changing, and money is going to move with it. Literally move, like speed of money is getting very, very fast thanks to these cryptos. So you and I have been big proponents in terms of telling people, especially ahead of the election, that we thought, and again, this is sort of your Vegas money, guys, right? Like, don't think about this. This is not the nest egg for forever, or the kids' college savings. This is when you have a little left over, and you could go to Vegas, but you decide to stay home. What do you do with it? And to me, that was Bitcoin, as well as Ethereum. And now, because I really love this stuff, I'm wonking out. And I was telling you, I said, we used to do this for people so they understand. It's sort of like a beginner's guide to investing in cryptos. Now I've gotten onto Coinbase, and it's amazing. Like the market is open 24/7. You can see exactly what your cryptos are doing in real time. And you recommended to me Coinbase One because the fees were lower, so I appreciate that, assuming you're going to trade a certain kind of volume. But walk us through this kind of interesting land. I mean, I like Coinbase just because it gives you the bull side, the bear side. This is not, by the way, a commercial for Coinbase. We're not sponsored by Coinbase. I'm not, plugging anybody. I'm just giving you my own personal experience. I literally just got on it last night. I've been buying ETFs. So like the BlackRock, good Grayscale, but I think this is pretty cool. I know you've been on it for a while. Tell us about Coinbase.
Yeah. Well, I would say people who are pretty new to crypto, which I think, to be fair, kind of includes us. I mean, we go back a few months when we were sort of got very intrigued when you introduced Michael Saylor at the conference, and I think he's been very impactful in terms of opening everyone's eyes into like kind of what's going on technologically with Bitcoin and this movement towards digital assets. But I think from the standpoint of newish investors, you have basically two options. You can get exposure through ETFs, which is go into your brokerage account and buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. At the moment, those are the only two tokens that have ETFs. Or can go into a custodian, a platform like Coinbase, which is the leading platform for cryptocurrency, and buy some of these assets directly, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some of the other, many of them.
Many of them. I have a little Polkadot, a little Avalanche, just because I like the names. little. No, but all of these cryptos, incidentally, I should just say, have fascinating technology behind them. And one of the reasons Rob and I got really into it, we're interested in Bitcoin, and Michael Saylor has certainly had an impact on that in terms of, I think, also sort of keying us into what we already sort of understood, but really, really kind of got in the trenches with. After hearing him and listening to him, and he was on this program, he was on this channel as well as the Trish Regan show. But Saylor is really into Bitcoin. We're also kind of intrigued by the Ethereum, because the Ethereum is like the working blockchain, where so many of these financial contracts, derivative contracts, all of these things that happen on Wall Street and take a lot of lawyers and a lot of manpower to do, have the potential for just being written into the Ethereum code. And so therefore all these things can happen instantaneously, and it's all part of this Ethereum blockchain. And there's other blockchains like it, like these other things that I'm just mentioning. And there's even, by the way, is it Ripple, that's kind of like the Democrat version of all this, hey, if you want to hedge your bets, right? I guess if Kamala had won, that, maybe Ripple would have been doing a little bit better. But what's fascinating to me, and why I don't think it's hocus pocus, is that there's real technology there. It's a question of what gets adapted, right? And there's different purposes for different things. So maybe there's room for a few of them. I think Bitcoin is going to serve one capacity, almost functioning. I mean, how would you describe MSTR? I mean, how would you, when you think about Saylor's company and what he's trying to do with sort of derivatives of Bitcoin, it's very different than, say, what Ethereum is being used for.
Yeah. So maybe, I would say Bitcoin is like the starting point, and there's a community of Bitcoiners who actually look negatively upon like the rest of the crypto, the rest of the crypto universe. And let's just to frame it, I mean, Bitcoin is about 60% of the total value of all cryptos. So it's sort of the big gorilla within crypto. I think the way to think about Bitcoin, it's almost like, if like gold and Facebook had a baby, Bitcoin is like the
if
Bitcoin
gold
is the
and Facebook.
All right,
funny.
I'm being a little out there, I guess, with these
analogies.
No,
it's just two interesting examples. Okay, gold, because it's like the safe thing, and Facebook. But why Facebook? Because
gold,
it's like popular.
Gold, because gold is this supply constrained form of money that's sort of non-sovereign and globally accepted. Okay, and then Facebook is a technological platform that's protected by very strong network effects.
Okay.
And so you kind of merge those two, and you kind of digital gold or kind of digital money, right? Digital capital. And so Bitcoin's position is as this idea that it's going to become a monetary network that's globally used. And it's already there. It's already a $2 trillion asset class. And it's right now today almost back to its, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The other coins like Ethereum, they're more like, I would say about them more as like kind of technology stocks where they serve various purposes. Ethereum's has about 50% share within stable coins. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like the underlying technology that supports the stablecoin industry. But then you've got other leading tokens like Solana, which is considered very good technology for international financial transactions. XRP, you mentioned Ripple, which mainstream financial institutions seem to be adopting as they transform the way transactions are processed. So the whole architecture of money is changing with these digital assets, and it's really kind of a technological revolution within the global financial system. So it's hard to see, no one knows exactly who's going to win, how exactly it's all going to play out, but it's not, this isn't just idle speculation on meme coins, right? These are real technology.
Right now, we should clarify that, and not even Polkadot and Avalanche. I mean, again, those are solid technologies, and I think Avalanche, I should check this. One of them has been adopted by the likes of JP Morgan, and they're using these blockchains, this technology, to work in various transactions, and so I think that's really what makes it most compelling. This is not like, the Haktui girl and all that craziness. This is not meme coin. This is real technology, and it's a question of sort of who's the winner in this. And I was trying, this is what led me to Coinbase. I was trying to buy some kind of basket, if you would, of different cryptocurrencies. Again, I have exposure through Grayscale, through BlackRock as well, to things like Bitcoin or Ethereum. But I was like, how do I get exposure? It was actually Solana that I wanted right before it went up 40%, by the way. This was like a week and a half ago. And I was traveling. I was in the car. I had like 4 hours between, I was going from Switzerland over to Italy before I left to come back home to the States over the break. And I'm like, how do I get this? And I saw that, for example, there was a pricing on Grayscale, but you couldn't actually buy it. That is not available yet, that ETF. And I'm like, where do you get it? And that's what actually led me to Coinbase, because it has sort of a multitude of these things that if you wanted to put together, I guess, a portfolio, maybe we should think about that actually for 76 Research. If you wanted to put forward just a basket, right? What would you actually be picking? And you can't get them. Actually, this has been the whole problem. This is why I didn't buy Bitcoin when it was $10, because I'm like, a hard wallet? Wait, what? Yep. And so, and it's evolved and continues to evolve. And now you got BlackRock in there, and you get Grayscale, and you've got some players, a lot of different Bitcoin funds, but, and a few Ethereum, but everything else you kind of have to go looking for.
Yep. And I would say, people, you should do your research, read about these different options. Probably, certainly, I think the first starting point is Bitcoin, and then go from there.
Yeah.
But look into and sort of there are, it's funny you mentioned the scandal with the meme coin. It's kind of like what's happened is people are sort of like discounting crypto, because it would almost be like saying like, I'm not going to, all stocks are bad because there's these kind of pink sheet stocks that are fraudulent, you know what I mean? Right. And so you throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's not fair to do, because there is a lot of nonsense within the crypto world. Avoid that, focus on the more established coins that have real adoption and real technology behind them, real teams, and look into those. But Coinbase is a way to get access to some of these before they become ETFs. And
I remember, just not to interrupt you, but I remember writing a piece a few years back, actually, where I was suggesting, like, look, because you couldn't buy Bitcoin unless you're in the hard wallet category, but Coinbase was a way to actually get in and have exposure. So even just, and I should be careful, because we actually haven't looked carefully at the metrics, and we haven't, this is a while back that I wrote this, and I think given the time horizon, you probably would have done very well on that trade. I don't want to suggest that I'm recommending it right now. I think we need to do some due diligence and look at it. But back then, before you could actually buy these things, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is what gives you exposure. And I think MSTR, MicroStrategies with Michael Saylor, was also another way for people to get exposure, right, to Bitcoin, because he's buying it every single week, whether it goes up or down. He's buying more and more and more.
Yep, it's a fascinating company. His strategy is basically, well, it's a little bit tricky. Bitcoin, he borrows some money to buy more Bitcoin, and then he does these various securities offerings to buy more Bitcoin to create more accretion, more Bitcoin per share for the MicroStrategy shareholders. So it trades at a premium to the total value of Bitcoin that he owns. Mm-hmm. But I think long term, there's this expectation that through this kind of financial engineering, he has been and will continue to be able to kind of create more shareholder value.
And he's the dominant player there. It's also worth noting he's really the dominant player there, and not to say that somebody else can't come along, but it makes it harder. Look, I'm looking at some of our viewers that still are kind of weirded out by it all. I get it. Look, my mom was one of them. She was like, I don't know about this Bitcoin thing ahead of the election. I was like, Mom, just if you have a little teeny, extra on the sidelines that you don't need, you might want to look at this. And she's very happy that she took that advice. I also told her 20 years ago to buy gold, and she's happy I gave her that advice too. But look, I get it. It's wacky. It feels very, very new. But what I'm going to go back to is the technology underpinning all of these that are sort of the big ones. And again, I'll stress the big ones, the Bitcoins, the Ethereums. I mean, even Ripple and Solana and these XRP, which is what Ripple is known by. I mean, they're really compelling technologies, and so it's worth understanding that, because this is where the world's going. I mean, imagine, look at us sitting here doing this. I grew up in a world where my kids don't understand it. There were 3 TV channels, and that was it. I used to watch Little House on the Prairie at 8:00 on Thursday nights, and if I didn't see it, I didn't see it. It was gone, right? It was just gone. And the kids, and I can remember sitting there with the rabbit ears, because we lived in rural New Hampshire, and this is pre-cable, trying to get the TV to come in. And that was usually my job as the kid. There was no remote control. I would change the channel and I'd work the rabbit ears.
But you'd have to avoid that electric shock from the static as you touch the...
Right.
I'm just having flashbacks. It's pretty treacherous.
Things are changing, and they're changing so fast. So fast forward, I mean, what's the world going to look like in 20 or 30 years? I do think that crypto is going to be part of that, and the technological gains are going to be massive in ways that we just can't even entirely comprehend right now. So it's part of my sort of overall sentiment right now, and why I'm so excited, and why I'm relieved, Rob, that we have a president in there who gets that. I think that that's a big part of why the tech community backed him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost surprising to me the extent to which he's really kind of melded into, or sort of been embraced by the tech community, or has embraced the tech community. David Sachs being the crypto/AI czar in the administration. Obviously, Elon Musk is in his ear, seemingly 24/7. Even we see with the TikTok thing, a high level of sensitivity to kind of protecting a technology platform, and kind of appreciation for that you might not have thought.
It's a great app, right? I mean, let me see if I can play some. Finish your thought. I may play some sound from Mike Waltz on that, but continue what you were saying, because I think it's amazing how the tech community, which once shunned him, can't get enough of him. I mean, Inauguration Day, you're going to have Mark Zuckerberg, you're going to have the head of Google, you've got Elon Musk, you've got Jeff Bezos, they're all up there seated with the president. It's an endorsement from them. It's also his endorsement of them, right? Saying we're in it to win it. We are the technology capital of the world, and we're going to make sure we stay the technology capital of the world.
Well, look, here we are. It's 2020. The stock market, right? It's 40% of the stock market. The S&P 500 is 10 companies. So it's these giant technology platforms. They're the leaders of the U.S. economy. They're the leaders of the world economy. And what does the future look like? It's a competition with China among all nations to, have the best technology and to dominate, in that space. The winners of the future are not going to be the ones who, make the most cars, to be honest, right? I mean, it's not a manufacturing race. It's a high tech race. And Trump understands just
although he also understands the importance of keeping the jobs for those that make the cars here. I mean,
sure. I don't mean to downplay the relevance of industry, but when you think of the leadership in the U.S. in the global economy and the future, it's technology.
It is. Yeah, no, it is.
Yep.
It's and he values it, and they value him because they get that he gets it. You mentioned TikTok. So just a short time ago, TikTok came back online. When I woke up this morning, I couldn't get my TikTok account. Oh my gosh, I thought, we had all this great content coming its way. We did, actually. We had a whole bunch of things scheduled. But I had a feeling this would be resolved rather quickly. There's a temporary resolving of the issue, with Donald Trump making it clear that there would be no penalties for TikTok staying online. Let's see what Mike Waltz had to say. He's a head of national intelligence, and he was just on CNN earlier today talking about this.
I don't want the FBI looking at my passports. I don't want the Chinese Communist Party looking at my passwords, or what's going on in my data, or certainly not influencing 170 million Americans. But it is a fantastic app. It's something that 170 million Americans enjoy. And we're confident that we can save TikTok, but also protect Americans' data and protect them from influence, whether that's an outright sale, whether that's some mechanism of firewalls to make sure that the data is protected here on U.S. soil. That's what the president will be evaluating, and I'll certainly be helping from that from a national security.
So it's possible that China will still own that, and if so, isn't that totally capitulating to China?
No. It's not capitulating at all. Again, we can do both. Both can be true at the same time. TikTok can continue to exist, and whether that's in American hands, owned by an American company, or whether the data and the algorithms are fully protected from Chinese interference. There's a number of, I think, of formulas this can take. But the point right now, Donna, is let's get the president some time to make that decision.
He called Dana Donna. I love it. All right. Dana, Donna, whatever your name is. Anyway, his point being, though, that this is an amazing platform. And, I think just showing the appreciation for it is an important signal to China. Donald Trump also saying today that he wants to meet with Xi. He spoke to Xi. It was a very good conversation. One of the things that came up was not just the tariffs, but also TikTok. He's also talked about wanting to make sure that the U.S. owns half of it, which, if he's talking about the U.S. government, might mean you got some state media in the works. I don't know, but we'll see. I think that he's got time on his side. He's got at least 90 days here to play with, and he's going to want to get some kind of deal. We just need to make sure it's the right deal for everybody. But yeah, I mean, all of this stuff is just incredible.
Yeah, the TikTok situation was pretty fascinating. I had a chance to glance at the Supreme Court opinion. It was 9-0. So debate whether was it a violation of First Amendment rights to ban or was the law valid? And the Supreme Court felt it was pretty black and white. That it was basically because you weren't punishing any particular type of speech. You were just sort of taking down a communications platform that's run by an adversary. Mm-hmm. But so it's, look, we're going to have these disagreements, I think, even within the MAGA movement going forward. It's, life is complicated and there's pros and cons. And it's interesting from Trump's point of view. He's always one to kind of want to have his cake and eat it too, right? To kind of get the best possible deal for America. Yes, we have these national security concerns, but maybe we can preserve TikTok as an economic engine, and it's a lot of businesses kind of rely on TikTok. They
sell on it, right? A lot of businesses sell on it.
Yeah, so it's sort of, for it to go dark would have an impact on American businesses and consumers. So let's be creative. Let's think outside the box.
That's what I love. I'm like, why can't you have your cake and eat it too? In all seriousness, right? If you've got creative enough people, and that's what we've been lacking in government. There's no creative thinking. They're a bunch of just bureaucrats. And all of a sudden, we're injecting some life into things because people are talking about stuff that never talked about before. An ERS instead of an IRS. Hey, let's, do this and that. And I think that enthusiasm and the fact that, by the way, he's coming in with 100 executive orders. He's also got a team of lawyers that have been aggressively working towards this day, saying, okay, if we get it, what are we going to do? And they're not going to waste any time, right? Because they found out last time around what happens if you waste any time. You got the other side just attacking you nonstop. We don't have time for attacks, Rob. We got to get what done. We just have to.
And that's the essence of, I know, Trish, you talk a lot about your preference for business people in politics, but like the essence of of business is creative problem solving every day, figuring out strategies, figuring out how to adapt. And that's what we're seeing in real time. He hasn't even been inaugurated yet, but we're seeing him, working out these deal structures and, figuring, contrast it with Biden. With Biden, I was really struck by Mike Johnson's report that Biden didn't even know that he had signed an executive order, not allowing, liquefied natural gas exports. Like when he met
That's
with Biden,
wild.
Like he didn't know. Biden was like,
That's
this is
so wild.
So we didn't have a president, let alone one who was engaged in creative problem solving. And now here we are, one issue after another. Look at managing the relationship with China. Okay, people have a lot of hostility towards China, and there's a lot. They are our adversary. There's only one planet Earth here, and those are the two major powers. Our economies are more or less equally sized. We need to coexist with China.
Does that mean we get Greenland? Will that help us with China?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's connected. It's the Arctic. That's what it's all. There's the Arctic ice cap is kind of melting, and actually, we talked about it before. It's not necessarily because of carbon emissions. It's actually because of a cleaner environment and less aerosols in the air, which is allowing some of that ice to thaw. But so those passages in the Arctic Ocean are opening up, and it's becoming more strategic, and it very much relates to, because if Greenland's vulnerable, they could be vulnerable to, doing deals with China to get those rare earth minerals or to get access to those strategic locations in the Arctic. So
it sounds like they're kind of open to the idea as well. This was a joke before. Like, this was always a joke. And Trump kind of treated it like a joke, but let's not forget, this was like 8 years ago he was talking about this, how he'd like to buy Greenland. And everybody's like, ha, ha, ha. And then he kind of went along with the joke, and he was like, hey, Greenland, I promise I won't do this. And he showed a tweet. This is great, where he had like a giant picture of Trump Tower in the middle of Greenland. And it kind of went by the wayside, but now he's coming back for round 2. And he's like, yeah, I want Greenland. I'm serious. So if Greenland were to have some kind of referendum and they were to vote on this and they decided they wanted to become part of the U.S., you and I were talking about this the other day, Denmark wouldn't, you could say, okay, well, how is this any different than Putin going in and saying, well, I want this part of Ukraine, and that part of Ukraine, and then it becomes a standoff and, the threats of World War III and et cetera, right? We know how that plays out. How is it different with Greenland and Denmark?
Well, from what I understand, the situation in Greenland is that under the Danish constitution or the Greenland constitution, like legally, the people of Greenland do have the right to have a referendum and declare their own independence. Right now they're like a territory of Denmark.
Right.
So I think that, and there's actually been a movement in it that, Trump is aware of, that, the people of Greenland do want independence. The opportunity is, I don't know that the United States, like Greenland would become part of the United States, but there has been a lot of work to develop the idea of like kind of a treaty with Greenland that would give the United States all kinds of rights and sort of preemptive rights, while Greenland, like the sort of the parallel is to like the Marshall Islands or some of these other small countries around the world, where you enter into a kind of a compact with them, where as again we go back to having your cake and eating it too. We don't necessarily need to own Greenland to have the benefits of Greenland that we seek and kind of put into law. And so, there is an opportunity there.
Yeah. He's not as crazy as he sounds. Okay. Listen, I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't been over to 76 Research, go to 76 Research, go look at the model portfolios, get the 76 report. You can spare $1, okay? You can cancel anytime, but there's worthwhile information there for you. There's a lot of good stuff ahead. Rob and I will continue being back here on the YouTube channel as well. I think it's important. And feel free always to ask questions. We didn't get that many questions. I'm disappointed in you guys, but always feel free to ask questions here on this platform. We check it regularly. And always, if you're part of that 76research.com report, if you're getting the 76 report, you can always reach to us directly through that as well. So thank you for tuning in. A lot of exciting stuff ahead. Big day tomorrow. We're here with you for all of it. Thank you for tuning in. Rob, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you.